person of resilience, forge me into a person of persistence, right? And a person that chooses optimism, a person that chooses the future every time, and somebody that is going to bet on themselves, as well as somebody that is always going to fall in love with the process, right? So for me, you guys, when it came to basketball, I didn't start playing basketball. I think I was like 12, 11, 12 years old. I was going into my eighth grade year, like actually taking it seriously. Right before that, I played at the rec center, played outside, but it wasn't anything too serious. But going into my eighth grade year, you guys, I ended up meeting two gentlemen named Jamal Coleman and Devin Davis. They were both seniors in high school. Well, they were both graduating out of high school, right? And they were both going into college to play basketball. And they took me under their wing, right? I was just a kid that was going to the rec center that was up the street. They went there as well just because that's where we all lived in that neighborhood. They were good friends of my older brothers, and they ended up taking me under their wing and just telling me one of the promises was like, "Hey, we're gonna make you better than your brother." Right? Obviously, we all have those sibling rivalries, so they're like, "Hey, we're gonna make you better than your brother." So every day that summer, going into my eighth grade year, I just went out and trained with them every morning, waking up early, getting to the rec center, um, just working out probably 3 times a day, but also just building a bond and a relationship, right? Because those in my life, those were the first people in my life that I actually can say like, oh, they were my role models, right? They gave me something else to be able to push for because obviously at home, and you got a lot of you guys know that part of my story, right? Where my mom being a single mom on disability, like her, my mom, her, and my dad separated obviously due to drug addictions and all those things, and my older siblings got into selling and addictions and all that, right? So I'm not going to get into that today because I want to talk about the basketball part. So from there, right, I fell in love like with the game of basketball. And one of the biggest things for me, right, as I was playing and as I was training was I didn't want to let their belief down. When somebody believes in me or gives me their confidence, and gives me their time, that's one of the things that I cherish the most, right? Because I understand again the value of it just because I saw a lack of it a lot of times in my life. So when they were the first people to do that, I was like, man, I'm going to work the hardest I possibly can. Number one, I want to be able to prove them right. I don't want to let them down and waste the time that they poured into me. So going into ninth grade year, I was playing basketball, and then I got an opportunity where a coach wanted me to play for them, right, at a different high school. So I was transferring over to that high school, and as I was transferring over to that high school, I ended up meeting somebody that ended up playing a even bigger role, right? And it was my school counselor. Her name was Michelle Kosha, right? So if you're a former teacher, a former school counselor, and you're in here today, thank you, right? You guys don't understand the role, or you may understand it, right? But just the role and the impact that you make on kids, right, as they're growing up. Because I know Michelle Coach is somebody that I always show a ton of respect for. We even have still a good relationship to this day. But she took me under her wing, right? I was a ninth grader coming into this high school. I was a brand new kid. I was playing on the varsity basketball team. My grades were really good, and she was the senior counselor, and she just came and found me. And I went to a public city school, you guys. So like it was, I'm not gonna say it was out of the norm, but it was a little out of the norm a little bit. And she became a mother figure to me. And every day after practice, right, she would give me money to make sure I had food. She would bring me, I went to school pretty much probably like 30 minutes across town because obviously I had to take a city bus. So she would bring me home at night after practice was done, and she was just with me throughout my entire basketball career, high school career, I would say. And she just always looked out and looked after me. Now, and this is when the obstacles started, though, right? I ended up in high school, I think in my ninth and 10th grade year, like I ended up fracturing both of my ankles twice when playing basketball, like just back to back, one after another. And my ninth grade year, I couldn't play at all, right? I couldn't play at all for some other reasons when it came to school and transferring different rules like that. But 10th grade, I didn't fracture my ankle a few different times. So I couldn't play as much as I wanted to. I even remember we were at sectionals, which is like playoffs for high school, and I was playing like with an air cast on at the end of that season because I was somewhat cleared to play, but not really. Ended up transferring to another school. that ended up being closer to kind of my house. In my 11th grade year, this is where I met my fiance Ide, because I got another opportunity to play basketball there where a coach wanted me to be able to come and play. I finished my high school season out there, but I ended up at the end of my senior year, I ended up catching pneumonia just from playing basketball, right? Playing basketball, I lived in New York, so it was cold all the time. Playing basketball, going outside, what do your parents always say? Hey, put a coat on, put a jacket on. Didn't do that. I went from the gym to the car, tried to go home. I ended up catching a cold, and I had that cold for about like 2 to 3 weeks. It was quite a while. And I developed pneumonia from it. What the pneumonia ended up developing into, right, as time went on, ended up eating away at a hole in my lungs. The hole in my lungs, I ended up having to get lung surgery probably a week before was going into my freshman year of school. They held me in a hospital for a week because they didn't know what was wrong with me, right? Just because I was coughing up blood and all those things. The chest pains came back, and they didn't know if I had like tuberculosis, so they had me on like quarantine in the hospital. And this is literally a week before I went to school to be able to start my college career. After they let me out, I couldn't play basketball, right? Thankfully, the school I went to was only about like 45 minutes away, and I was going back and forth every single week, like for different doctor visits, to constantly be able to get checked on. And I wasn't cleared to play basketball that year because they was afraid my lungs would collapse if I put any heavy strain, like any heavy physical strain. So at the end of that first semester in college, I just decided, you know what, I'm not gonna go back that second semester. I'm just gonna go home, get a job. Went back, work at the rec center, and I was also a janitor, by the way. So I know I really only talk about like two jobs that I had at the rec center and in the post office, but I was a janitor for like a couple months at LA Fitness because I wanted a free membership. So I used to go to work like from like 5 to 9. Couldn't really call it work, you guys. I didn't really do too much. I was playing basketball again. So I really don't know how I held these jobs. But after that, 20, what we're in, so I graduated high school. I don't want to age myself here. You guys all know I'm young. So I graduated high school in 2016. So 2017, right? 2017, I'm going into, I already missed my first year of college, going into my technically second year, still freshman year, college in 2017. Um, and I end up breaking my arm. A couple games into the season, I end up breaking my arm. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this, and I'm going to keep on going here in a second, is just because during this, obviously, because of all the injuries, because of all the obstacles that came into my path, you guys, like I had to genuinely fall in love with the process of just working on myself and getting better at the sport that I loved. Because I didn't get the opportunity. I got to play obviously basketball in my junior and senior year with no injuries, obviously. But going into college, obviously, a bunch of new things started to be able to pop up, and I had to be able to take a step back. And back then, I didn't find God, you guys, or give my life to God until August 1st of 2024. So back then, I genuinely didn't know. Like I always used to question, like, man, why is this happening? Why are there so many walls or roadblocks being put up in my way to be able to pursue the sport that I love, pursue the sport that is keeping me out of all so much different troubles, right? That comes in where I lived and comes in with just the with where my family was at, right, and where their mental space was. Um, but I kept choosing it, right, because I knew if I decided to give up, in my mind, that was my only path out of where I grew up was playing basketball. There wasn't any other paths that I saw, right, or I actually had the opportunity to be able to move forward in. And I knew if I stopped, where was I going to go? Like I said, at that time, all of my direct older brother was a few years older than me, right? Was selling drugs. I have all of my other older siblings were right addicted to either drugs or alcohol. Like my mom was dealing with so many different traumas, and I knew what the bottom of life looked like, or a life where giving up was the first thing you did in the face of adversity, and not trying to continue to be able to fight to find a different path. That is, so I knew if I quit, that is what I was left with. And for me, that wasn't okay. For me, I wasn't content with living a life like that. So I decided to be able to push through, because we all ask for strength, you guys. We all pray for strength, right? But when life gets hard, we decide to complain about it. I decided not to complain about it because, again, I didn't have a relationship with God, so I didn't know to pray back then, to be honest with you. In my mind, this is what life has to throw at us. So I'm like, man, you know what? I'm gonna buckle up. I'm gonna get through this. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm going to choose optimism. I'm going to choose the fact that everything is going to be okay. And I have the strength to make it that way. Right. This is a quote that I always held, that I always hold me. Obviously, I heard Andrew Menace say it one time. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. Right. I didn't know what that quote was back then, but that's how I lived my life. Right. If something was going to happen, it was going to be through my strength, my will, me putting one foot in front of the other, and going out there and making it happen, because nobody else was going to make it happen for me. So continue to play, right? Be able to push on. I end up stop playing. Obviously after I broke my arm, and I think this is what 2018. Took another year off. I ended up going back home because I went to school in Ohio. Was in Ohio alone, like with a broken arm. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back home early before the school year ends, and I ended up getting a job at the post office for a year, right at the end of, and it was like May of 2018. Had that job for until about June of 2019. Quit in the summer so I can train, and then I was going back to school. Obviously, COVID happened that year, right? COVID ended up happening that year, cut the season short again. End up taking that next year off, and during that year, that was a very hard year for me, because again, another obstacle popped up, right? And it made me question, like, man, am I even supposed to be playing basketball? Is this the path that I'm even supposed to be on? Right? And the question, and what I used to always tell myself, I'm like, man, it's hard for a reason. It's hard for a reason. There is something that I'm being led to. There is something on the other side of this. And if I quit now, I'm never going to be able to experience it. And I look at that in the way of this business, right? Especially when we first start. When you first start this business, it's hard as hell, you guys, right? Because you're learning how to lead yourself. You're learning something new when it comes to learning sales and production. You're learning how to run a business. There's so many different obstacles that are thrown your way for you to be able to learn. And too many people quit before they're able to get on the other side of it to see what has been waiting there for them. And that's how I viewed it when I was playing basketball. I was like, man, I got to keep pushing through. I got to keep pushing through, because this is building me up for something. And it'd be very easy for me to quit. But if I quit, then all the pain, all the obstacles, all the tribulations that I had been through up until that point meant nothing. And I went through that, and I chose optimism, and I chose positivity, and I chose my future, just to be able to give up at this point when I haven't been able to see any of the fruit of this. So I continue to push on, right? So I end up getting an opportunity because I was at a JUCO that entire time, got my associates, got an opportunity to be able to play at a 4-year school coming up in the fall of 2021, right? In that time, as I was getting ready to be able to go there, then I end up finding symmetry. And I didn't find symmetry for me because I was looking, right? You guys have heard in my story before. My now fiance Ide, she was working at Target back then, right? This was what, May of 2021. She was working at Target. She wanted another job. And I was like, I'm generally wasn't doing anything but playing basketball all day. So I started looking on Indeed, ended up seeing symmetry, and it said 75. Number one, it said collegiate athletes, 75 to 300K. I was like, what in the world is this? I was like, number one, I'm a collegiate athlete, but why in the world does it say 75 to 300K? I know they're not, like, this sounds crazy. So when I clicked on it, it talked about insurance, right? It talked about insurance. I knew nothing about insurance. But again, the thing that stuck out to me the most was it said, hey, we will teach you how to be able to grow and run a business from the ground up. Now, from my time at the post office, I knew I wanted to own a business, right? Because I knew I'm just somebody that I just always wanted to be able to control my future. I wanted to control my income. I want to control my time because I know what I was worth. So I decided to apply, right? And again, not having a relationship with God back then, I don't know. I know what it is now, but back then, when I decided to stop playing basketball and to give all of myself to this, everybody thought I was crazy, right? I had an opportunity lined up to be able to continue to go to school to play at a 4-year. It's something I spent pretty much all my life working towards, but to be able to give it up for this business, people generally thought I was insane. And honestly, you guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. I had no real good reason why I decided to trust this business in the way that I did, besides just the vision that it gave me when I saw being able to grow a business. And I just kind of looked ahead 10, 15 years, and I was like, man, this is what my life could be like. This is the life that I wanted. I get to control these things. So I just decided to commit, right? And the even though I came in here without any experience in sales or really experience in relationships or experience in life, I guess I was 22. So a lot of you guys probably say, Michael, you didn't even know what life was at that point still, right? The trials and tribulations that I went through, it built me to be able to weather the storms that this business is going to throw at me. And the reason that I say that is because everybody on the screen, well, there's 210 people in here. You guys have all weathered different trials and tribulations. You guys have all weathered different points in life where the journey was tough and you were wondering why is this happening to me? What in the world am I going through? God, why me? Why is this my path? Why is this my life? Why are these my struggles? Right? We all have gone through that because we all have different versions of hard, but it's up to us on how we look at it, right? And it's up to us where we decide to apply our strengths because you have the strength within you. It's just up to you to use it. And I promise you, what this business throws at you is nowhere near as hard as some of the things that you guys have went through in life. It's the only reason why this feels harder at times or in the moment is because you're giving yourself a choice on whether it's worth it or not. And one thing I do know is that he who has a why can bear almost any how, right? And when that why is powerful enough, the how becomes easy on how to be able to knock this business out. But you have to know why you're here in the first place. You have to figure out what your purpose is. Why are you here in this business? Why is it so important for you to be able to follow through? And then I read this the other day, and I want to read this to you guys because I saw this the other day and it just made me think and reflect a lot. As you guys know, I'm a big reflector, right? It says most people pray for strength and complain when life gets hard, but growth never comes easy. Peace doesn't come without chaos. Life will challenge your ego, your emotions, your limits, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. You don't become your best self by avoiding pain. You become it by walking through it with your eyes open. Life won't give you what you want, it gives you what you need to evolve. And when I read that a few days ago, I'm like, man, like it made me reflect and just start again thinking on myself, thinking about the conversation that me and I were having with Gabby, and just thinking like, man, like not only am I built for this, but I know you guys are built for this because you have already proven yourself in whatever you have gone through in life when you were asking yourself why led you here. But now you have the choice. It's going to be up to you on what you do with it at the end of the day. And I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. Life can be weird, right? Life is meant to be lived moving forward, but it only makes sense in reverse sometimes. What I went throughout my life only makes sense now because of where I am and how I allowed the choices to make that take like how I allowed the choice I made of how I was going to allow that to forge me and shape me and what I was going to do with that with those different pains and those different trials allowed me to be able to live the life that I am at the moment. So the question for you, and this is what I want to leave you guys with, how are you guys going to allow, what choices are you going to make with the hard that you've been through in life? How are you going to allow that to forge you and dictate your life from this point onwards? Because again, we all have a choice on what we're going to do with those different pains, those different hards. So with that, that's all I got. Breakout rooms are not open because I don't know how to do it. I saw Fred was the